don't we let Canadians decide? Why doesn't the Prime Minister pause the tax across the country until Canadians go to the polls so we can have a carbon tax election and Canadians can choose his plan to quadruple the tax or my plan to axe the tax?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. Before question period began, reporters caught up with Trudeau to ask him about his backpedaling on the carbon tax in Eastern Canada.
Little did he know what awaited him in question period shortly after that. Let's take a look.
Why won't you give a carve-out for other gases other than home heating oil?
Let's talk about home heating oil specifically first and make it very, very clear. Home heating oil is 50% more emitting than natural gas, for example. It's far more expensive, and it impacts the most vulnerable lower-income homes much more. A greater proportion of people who use home heating oils don't have other alternatives. That's why we're moving forward with a program that is going to replace home heating oil furnaces with heat pumps right across the country. It's not just regional, it's right across the country.
Time out. That was not entirely correct, Trudeau. See, we did some looking, and unfortunately we could only find stats as recent as 2011. But when he says home heating oil is used right across the country, let's take a look at one of his own agencies, StatsCan, and what they have to say about this. So this is a graph that shows the percentage of heating type in homes across Canada. This is Eastern Canada in this graph. Now, look at the numbers there. You have 21% of heating in Newfoundland and Labrador used by heating oil. Prince Edward Island, 76%. Nova Scotia, 54%. New Brunswick, 13%. Now look at the rest of the country. Now, the F's stand for too unreliable to be published. So there's not a lot of data there, which is probably why it wasn't published. And Quebec is 8%, Ontario 5%, British Columbia 3%. That is not aligning with Trudeau's representation that, oh, this is all across the country, it's affecting everybody equally. It absolutely is not. And this is why everybody's calling him out on it. You're trying to say that Canadians across the country use heating oil, maybe geographically, but in terms of the amount of people, I guarantee you that 99% of them are in Eastern Canada. And this is why people are calling you out on your bullcrap.
Well, it's because he picked a mode of heating, we'll call it, that targets exclusively Atlantic Canadians, or nearly exclusively Atlantic Canadians. I mean, the ones in BC and Alberta and Quebec may as well be just like a blip on the radar. So he's targeting something exclusively or near exclusively for Atlantic Canadians, and that is where he's taking a nosedive in the polls. I mean, he's taking a nosedive everywhere, but especially in Atlantic Canada.
Right. And he's saying, well, you know, it's the most carbon heavy heating source. Okay, so if that's the case, then why are you exempting it?
Exactly.
Shouldn't you be exempting the Canadians that are actually using a cleaner heating source like natural gas?
But that's because this has never been about the environment. It's always been about money.
Bingo. Bingo. And votes.
If premiers like in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Alberta and elsewhere want to do the same thing that Newfoundland, PEI and Nova Scotia are doing, which is work with us to make sure that low-income families get heat pumps for free, we're there to work with them. It's a program for right across the country.
Okay, and we didn't get you in English. Can you just declaratively say, will there be a carve-out for other carbon taxes in English? I know you said in French, but just to clarify.
There will absolutely not be any other carve-outs or suspensions suspensions of the price on pollution. This is designed to phase out home heating oil the way we made a decision to phase out coal. Now, when we decided to phase out coal as a country, there were provinces that had long gone from coal that didn't help them at all that we were phasing out coal because they'd already done it. Others needed to step up to do it. This is specifically about ending the use of home heating oil, which is more polluting, more expensive, and impacts low-income Canadians to a greater degree.
None of this makes sense. If you're trying to phase out home heating oil, then why are you removing the tax on it and therefore making it cheaper and more convenient?
Right. It's doing the opposite of what they justified the carbon tax to do in the first place. If they intended to operate this way, then what they would have done is they would have kept the carbon tax on the home heating oil and lowered it or removed it on natural gas.
I'm no fan of the carbon tax, obviously, in any shape or form, but what he's telling Canadians is either it's a lie or he's just as confused as the rest of us, because it does not make sense. And when he started with these reporters in English, he said, "Let me be very clear." So I'm going to guess it's probably a lie.
Yeah, you knew what was happening then. So anyway, let's get to see what happened in question period.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Flip-flop on the carbon tax for oil heating proved everything he said for 8 years about the tax is wrong. It's not worth the cost. He said that the tax would make people better off. He's now admitted that that's not true. Yep. He said it's about the environment, but he leaves the tax on lower emitting and more environmentally friendly natural gas. And now he's dividing Canadians based on where they live. So will he stop creating two classes of Canadians? Will he take the tax off all so Canadians can keep the heat on?
So this is exactly what we said would happen after he made his little announcement last week, that the Conservatives would be diving right in and jumping all over this because it is too easy. This was their last hill to die on, and Pierre is taking a bulldozer and a backhoe to it.
Because Canadians know what's going on. Canadians see that it's blatant favoritism to try to pick up votes in Atlantic Canada. It has nothing to do with saving the environment.
Right. And why are they trying right now, right this second, to try and save all of these votes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the goal from the very beginning of our fight against climate change and the price on pollution was to put more money in people's pockets and encourage protecting the planet. And that's exactly what we've seen over the past number of years. As a step, one of the things we are targeting right now is home heating oil, which is used right across the country, primarily by lower income residences, and they pay more for home heating oil than you do for natural gas, and it's dirtier and more emitting than natural gas.
Great.
So we are going to provide free heat pumps for low-income families in provinces that are willing to participate with us and drive down emissions.
Can you believe what he just said? If you actually listen to that, if I'm an Atlantic Canadian, I'm pissed. He's essentially saying that Atlantic Canadians are dirty, poor people. That's what he's saying. Because initially the announcement was Eastern Canada, right? And then they got in crap for it, and then they expanded that. Well, you know, it's across the country. It's across the country. Yet he's just saying, well, this is targeting low-income Canadians, and this is a really dirty source of heating.
Well, he's talking about two different things, right? The first thing he's talking about is removing the carbon tax off home heating oil, which, as we've already discussed, primarily affects Atlantic Canadians because that's where they use it the most. The other thing he's talking about is this heat pump program, which, according to a Government of Canada website, says if your home is heated by oil and your household is at or below the median household income after tax, then you're eligible for this program where you could receive an upfront payment of up to $10,000 towards a heat pump. So basically, if you're middle class and you're making just above the median Canadian family household income, you're not getting nothing.
Yeah, You get nothing. And the other stipulation here is that I believe your house net worth has to be evaluated at less than $300,000 in order to qualify for this heat pump as well.
Well, and another limitation of this program says hybrid cold climate heat pumps, and then in brackets, central ducted heat pumps paired with an oil, gas, or propane fired furnace are not eligible under this program. What happens when the power goes out?
Well, and that's the problem here, right? That's the problem. You're talking about people who live in rural areas. So if they don't have a backup for this heat pump, guess what happens? They freeze. And guess what insurance companies have a problem with? A electric source of heat in a rural home without a backup.
Ah, but why don't you just use a generator?
Yeah, so now they're going to have to fork out the money to go and buy a generator to either generate enough electricity for the heat pump, or they're going to have to essentially put in a gas or this is just stupid.
It's so dumb.
This is so stupid. And never mind the fact that there's a whole bunch of people in the comments that are very, very smart that know that once the temperature drops below a certain point, the heat pump either doesn't work or the efficiency drops significantly. So you still end up with no heat.
And what else would they suggest? Wood burning, which I understand a lot of people burn wood, but if your goal is to create less emissions, I don't think that's going to do it.
Well, and how are you going to heat an entire house, a modern house, with a wood stove? It's not reasonable.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition
Admits that he's keeping the tax on cleaner and lower emitting natural gas. This is clearly not about environmental science, it's about political science. And that political science with him is always divide and conquer. Tear the country apart to serve his own narrow personal interest. Does he not realize that what he is doing is not just bankrupting Canadian households, 14% of whom are living with unsafe temperatures because of higher energy costs, but he's actually tearing our national unity apart?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what we see from the Conservatives yet again is misinformation. The price on pollution applied to natural gas does put more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians across the country. That is what the Leader of the Opposition refuses to recognize. When Canadians receive a climate action incentive check, that more than compensates for 8 out of 10 households across the country than what they spend on carbon price with natural gas. It doesn't apply that way. That math doesn't apply on home heating, which is why we're phasing out home heating oil by replacing them with free heat pumps for low-income Canadians.
Yeah, so I'm confused about that. Fox and I were just talking about his last statement. You know, this doesn't apply to home heating in terms of putting more money back in your pocket. Well, if it's part of the carbon tax, is it not, Trudeau?
I bet it doesn't apply to groceries either.
Well, it definitely doesn't apply to groceries. Like, what are you talking about?
Are we going to have to get the chart out again?
Well,
and show him again?
I'm hoping Pierre just brings this up. I'm hoping he brings this up so we don't have to bring the chart out, because that chart has been used far too much lately.
The Leader of the Opposition.
That he continues to contradict the parliamentary budget officer who said that 60% of Canadians pay more in his carbon tax than they get back in the rebates. What now he's doing is contradicting what he said on Thursday, wherein he admitted that Canadians are made worse off on a net basis by his tax. That's why he's having to put a pause until after the election. Already, 14% of Canadians are living with unsafe temperatures in their homes. 1 in 10 have missed a heating bill in the last 12 months. Will he, before people go cold and hungry, axe the tax so that people can keep the heat on?
This is the problem, Trudeau. This is the problem. When you start taking apart your own policy, it falls like a house of cards. It completely disintegrates. Because that's what he said. Everything that Pierre just said was true. He said, well, I'm concerned about the financial implications of this on Eastern Canada Canadians. So so we're proud to announce this program, yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, that's impossible if the carbon rebate does exactly what you said it does, which is put more money back into Canadians' pockets. So it doesn't.
As Pierre said, and we didn't pre-screen this video, so we had no idea he was going to say this, but he said, according to the parliamentary budget officer, that 60% of Canadians are not receiving more money back. And that's exactly the information that was taken from that chart.
Home heating oil is more expensive, more emitting, more polluting, and is in households that on general are lower income and don't have the means to support it. That's why we're putting forward a program that is going to give free heat pumps installed right across the country as long as the provinces step up and partner with us the way 3 provinces already have. We know the best way to support families is to have them save thousands of dollars a year on heating. That's what they're going to be able to do with a heat pump. That's why we're delivering it right across the country as provinces step up.
Okay, so now he's saying only 3 provinces are getting free heat pumps. So what happened to this? Well, we're putting together a program that encourages people to get rid of their home heating oil and move to heat pumps. Okay, well, only if you're in those 3 provinces, apparently.
Well, and this is the problem with narcissists in general, that when they're caught in a lie and when they're spiraling down, they just keep spitting out lies and lies and lies to try to dig themselves out of this hole, but they don't realize that they're not making any sense.
No, because they would rather continue the lie than actually accept the truth and move on. They can't do it. They are physically and mentally unable to do it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So he admits that natural gas is cleaner and lower emitting, and that's exactly why he's going to penalize Canadians for using it. Mr. Speaker, he says he wants to bring in a pause for some people in some places. I want to get rid of the tax for all people in all places and forever. But wait, why don't we let Canadians decide? Why doesn't the Prime Minister pause the tax across the country until Canadians go to the polls so we can have a carbon tax election and Canadians can choose his plan to quadruple the tax or my plan to axe the tax?
Wow, that was awesome.
So smooth.
What a great rebuttal to that, Pierre. All right. Sure, you want to compare carbon tax programs? Sure, let's let Canadians decide. Let's go. Let's go, Trudeau. Jeez, people, you don't think an election's right around the corner? We think an election's right around the corner. There's all of these hints being dropped all over the place that it's right around the corner.
Ah, maybe I'll get my New Year's wish and the NDP will pull the plug from this agreement with the Liberals.
Maybe.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is amazing to me that after 3 failed elections in a row by the Conservatives, they still want to fight another election on denying climate change, on denying the costs of climate change. After the summer we've had, they continue to say no plan against climate change is what's good for Canadians, good for our economy, good for businesses. They are wrong, and Canadians are going to show them that once again.
Okay, so I just saw this right at the end there. We're going to play this back. What you see is Pierre sitting in a seat telling Trudeau to bring it on.
Awesome. Awesome.
Right.
And that's the difference between this election that we believe is quite forthcoming and elections previous. Is the previous elections, the Conservatives did not have Pierre Poilievre at the helm. They did not have him steering the ship.
And he is just sitting there. He is staring down Trudeau saying, bring it. Bring it. You want to fight this in an election? Let's go. Let's go right now. And we'll see who wins.